So hello and welcome to this podcast on India independent films. My name is Shashi Mukherjee and today with me is the writer of Scam 1992, Saurav Dey, who has also written another series called Inside Edge Seasons 1 and 2 on Amazon Prime Video. Welcome Saurav. It's a pleasure to be talking to you. Congratulations. And how are you?
Thanks. I'm good. How are you?
I'm also good. So before we talk about the show and the craft of screenwriting, let's begin with this, a fun question like, how has your life been in this lockdown? Being a writer, has it been a blessing? Or are you also getting pissed off like all of us? Could you tell me?
So the beginning lockdown was really difficult. I mean, I went into it's not really as a depressive space, but I went into a dark space where this whole thing about not being able to, I'm mostly an outdoor person, so I like to go out, I like to walk and all that.
Okay.
And since this forced isolation was actually it was doing tricks to my brain, that's one. And secondly, this fear of corona also, and we all getting paranoid, we're sanitizing our hands, the moment you'll go out, the moment you'll get supplies, you'll probably again sanitize your hands, and this entire paranoia around the whole coronavirus thing completely threw me off. I mean, for the first 1 month it was really difficult. Then I got used to it. Now I'm good actually. Now I've marked my space like an animal. Now I'm good. I've marked my territory now. So I'm okay with this. I can live like this all my life. So
okay, so you're quite sorted right now.
Right now, yes. I tend to adapt eventually. Yeah.
And how's the work process right now? I think it should be really good for writers. Is it?
Not really, because I still prefer meetings. See, most of show writing is actually writer's room of different sorts.
Okay.
And I prefer sitting across the table, thrashing out ideas over a cup of coffee. This people meeting each other on Zoom or on Google Meet, etc. is something which I'm not very happy about, because you keep staring at a screen and everyone looks like they're trapped within a screen. We are like all animals looking at each other in a certain sense, like in cages. Electronic cages mein baithe hum sab. It's very strange after a while.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about freedom and independence, and actually we don't have it. I mean, we're all trapped in those electronic cages. It actually freaks me out after a while. Yeah. And I can't pay attention after a while also. I can't do like even something like this kind of conversation. I find very difficult to do.
I understand.
Because
I completely understand.
You keep sitting or standing. I'm the kind of person who's going to walk around an entire room for anything.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's very difficult for me. Yeah.
Completely understand. So let's now talk about the show and the craft of screenwriting.
Yeah.
I would begin with a very personal question, which the answer to which I want to know about screenwriting is that since you have adapted from a book and this is based on a real event, so what really goes into the process of adaptation of a real thing that makes it fiction? As in, like we talk about putting the elements of drama, like intention, obstacle, 3-act structure, plot points, all these things to make the boring real life events into watchable, interesting fiction. So do we draw upon this conclusion that real life doesn't have these elements? And if this is so, then where have these concepts for drama come from? Is the question making sense to you? Because I'm trying to...
Yeah, it's making perfect sense, so we can answer that as well.
Sure, please.
See, the whole thing is, in reality, life is more dramatic than fiction. I mean, I'm not even going by the truth is stranger than fiction thing.
Yeah.
But what happens is in real life, if something happens, like for example, while talking to you, suddenly if I collapse and if I die right now, for example, and if that is the truth, no one's going to question it because that's the truth.
Yes.
So real life doesn't have to be logical. Any random shit can happen. But in fiction, there has to be cause and effect, and there has to be a sense of logic throughout, without which you will get disengaged and say, what the fuck is going on? Okay. So that is very important. So and so there has to be a sense of cohesive structure in fiction, which in reality you need not have.
Yes.
So we look at these kind of things. See, this whole 3-act structure, I'm not very sure of, because even in films, I don't believe in a 3-act structure anymore.
Okay.
I believe in a pattern of engagement and a series of attractions that you need to have when you watch a film or a show.
True.
So I don't care. If you look at what is very gratifying and very happy thing which has happened with Scam 1992 is, we have broken certain structures, and we didn't do it deliberately because there was no other way out. Like if you see episode 1 has no cliffhanger. The ideal pilot episode is an episode in which you have a cliffhanger at the end. Yeah, because of which you would love to go to episode 2. We didn't have one because there wasn't any. With this an episodic story. Harshad's the huge market crash happens and Harshad loses all his money. And that's it. There is no automatic hook or cliffhanger for episode 2, and even after episode 2 there is no automatic there is no cliffhanger for episode 3. However, the kind of feedback we are receiving, and since I watch social media responses like a hawk actually, and I probably read every responses that come out, because that's the only way you understand how people are reacting to your stuff, because not through reviews, not through what people are telling you. Because when friends essentially talk to you, they will be nicer than usual. They'll not really say we didn't like all these things unless they want to be brutal or blatant. Even I don't do that, honestly. So and secondly, when you read reviews are again structured stuff. You don't really learn much from reviews which are organized and written in like a 500-page essay. So the only way to actually learn, and I'm very thankful that we've got that right now in our system, and that is you actually have social media in which people react to scenes, people react to moments, people say, "Arke Lakshman aa gaya, maza aa gaya," and these kind of things, and you sit and make points that even I thought so. When we, for example, we had a lot of chats with the authors of the book to understand the world.
Okay.
Before we started writing about it. The authors really, they painted a vivid picture of that world to us while they were talking, and we really got a lot out of that. So when we realized that Mr. Lakshman used to be in that office, we said, wow, we should really have him, and we should have him in specific scenes.
Achha.
So because we knew audiences are going to warm up the moment they see a personality like Mr. Lakshman. So now when people react the same way, then this idea has worked well. So this entire social media response, which is not structured, which is random, and which is coming from the heart, because no one has to, because we are not friends of people who are putting it up, or we are not enemies either.
Yeah.
When social media is where people speak the truth.
Yes, they don't know us. So they can just say anything.
Their subjective.
Yeah, sure.
Their subjective truth. So it's interesting to make notes of that and actually, also understand how these things work.
Very true.
If I watch another show, I'll watch very less actually. I think I watch the least number of films or shows for any writer probably in the country or in the world probably. If you ask me if have you seen this, my answer will be no. Okay. But if I watch something, I also go out and check those social media responses in for the same stuff, to see exactly what people had reacted to there and what scenes worked with them and what didn't. So even then I get an idea of, okay, this is working and that is not working. It doesn't really affect my craft or our craft. We were a team of 4 where me and Sumit wrote down the entire screenplay, and then Vaibhav and Karan did the dialogue drafts. But it's not necessary. We are trying to also cater to a certain response. At times we say we don't care if audiences think like this. This is what we think is true, and we'll go with that. Like for example, when we wrote down, when we were initially thinking how to break down the stock market and banking jargon, okay, because we were saying this is not even stock market, this is money market, this is a money market scam. Now, most people don't even know money markets exist. That's the first thing. Then you have to explain what a money market is. Then you again explain what a money market transaction works. And then you explain that in that transaction, how did Harshad manage to do a certain, take advantage of certain loophole, which eventually became a scam.
Yes.
It's like wheels within wheels within wheels. How do you get there? Okay. And then we took a call that, you don't have to spoon feed everything to the audiences. We'll try and simplify it. We'll try and explain it in our terms, but we'll not gloss over this part and suddenly just go to this part and say, aisa ho gaya. Because then you're disrespecting the audiences, and our audiences are fairly intelligent, and we have been not challenging them, disrespecting them for a long time. Plus, how is this consumption happen? This consumption happens through phones, or it happens through laptops.
Yeah.
Even if I don't understand something, when I watch something, I stop and I Google it. It's not really a big deal.
True.
Audiences know this is a form of enjoyment or consumption. Like, yeah, if you're in a cinema hall and you can't sit and Google, and suddenly this jargon comes up in front of you and you don't know what that is, you might be disengaged for the next 30 minutes. That's a possibility. So we were aware of the fact that we should not be dumping this down for sure.
Okay.
So even if, I have seen since I watch every review that comes out. I think there are some 70 reviews of this on YouTube reviews as well.
Yeah.
In which 3-4 people have said, नहीं हमें समझ में नहीं आया क्या है stock ये सब नहीं बोलना चाहिए था, etc. I'm ignoring those reviews because I know they're on my audience essentially.
Yeah.
So at least I watch every response very, very carefully, and then obviously I still decide what to agree with and not to agree with, and that's going to be part of my craft as I grow and as I write further stuff.
You know what? Aaron Sorkin says this about technical conversations in films, like The Social Network. He specifically spoke about that. Of course, it does sound to the audience that they don't understand what these people are talking about, but it should sound like they get convinced that, okay, we know what they are actually trying to convey. We don't understand the technicalities they are talking about, but it should make sense to the audience. Was that thought there when you were writing the technical scenes?
Yeah. So what I did is I watched the most difficult film in this genre possibly is Margin Call. Because in Margin Call you don't even understand, next day the markets are going to crash. You don't even understand what happened and why would they crash. There's a theory of I think there is a formula or a graph or a chart which actually says the markets are going to crash. They don't even show the chart in that film. Okay, but what you know is that these guys have a crisis and they have to solve it. It's actually fairly simple how to get audience engagement. One is you have to build a character for which you have empathy, for which you are rooting or which you are identifying with. Secondly, you have to, in no uncertain words, say that this character is in a crisis or this character is trying to solve something. Now, the technicality of solving that thing is something that the audiences never care about. Okay, like we can look at the super villains of the world, for example, and see in all our big superhero films, the super villains are very scary people who do absolutely simplistic stuff. Okay, and their plans are never great. It is the characters which are very fascinating. Like you will actually never see that someone's. Even a film like Shawshank Redemption, obviously that plan looks awesome just because this guy was at it for 22 years. With a spoon. But if you would read an article at the beginning which says one guy digs a hole for 22 years, it's a fairly simple plan.
Yes.
So I'm saying, but when you read a newspaper article, you have a sense of wonder. अच्छा ऐसा कर दिया, ठीक है. You don't care much beyond that. But in Shawshank Redemption, you really care about it simply because you have got attached to this character.
Yeah.
And when the character finds freedom, you find freedom. Okay. That's so this is the same thing. I mean, you just have to understand that this character is in a technical conversation hoga, but even if, for example, if I've built a time machine, for example, and if that's the scene, and I'm trying to sell the time machine to, let's say, a big multinational, if that's the scene, for example, and the multinational guy asks me, how does the time machine work? And I explain it to him in 2 minutes. None of which is understandable by the audiences. And the other guy says, no, this doesn't sound good to me, I'll not buy it. I have got the scene. Yes. I know my protagonist has failed to sell the time machine. I don't care about the technicalities, but I'll not understand that any which way. So as an audience, I gloss over it. I am more focused on looking at my character's reaction when the time machine fails. See, look at Prestige. It's the same thing. How Tesla makes that machine, no one really cares also.
Yeah, true. Very true.
So that's how all technical aspects should be. So we also noticed this very carefully. Like I saw this in, especially in Big Shot. Though Big Shot has these fascinating, slightly gimmicky also moments where you have explaining these things. This is that. But the other parts of Big Shot is extremely technical. In our writing room, luckily I was one guy who knew all about stocks, and that's because I've played the stock market. I've played the stock market physically. I have played options, I have played futures, I have played currency, I have played crude oil, I have played everything that's get replayed. Just as a hobby a few years back. Just to see if I can make easy money there. Like I made a lot of money and lost a lot of money also. So I know the entire drill of it. And there were lots of free time I had at times, and I would just sit and watch all the television channels to understand how they talk about the stock market, because they were giving out tips.
It paid off.
It paid off in future. It paid off in future. So when this whole idea came that we have to write a book based on the Harshit Mehta scam, I said, thank God I know all about the market, so there'll be no problems.
Have you also played cricket
but
before for Inside Edge?
I haven't played cricket. Obviously, we all grew up playing cricket. So I haven't played cricket at that level.
Yeah.
But I have this experience of, I have probably gone to 20 stadiums in the country to go and watch a cricket match. I'm that kind of a cricket fanatic.
Oh,
okay.
Wonderful.
And I'm also quite a cricket geek, and I know all my stats, etc. in general.
Okay.
So when we got to writing to Inside Edge also, and again when I was watching T20 cricket in general, I was watching it very specifically, and I am aware of all the conspiracy theories that also happen in a T20. So when we got down to writing Inside Edge, I had that edge, analytics edge I had, because I'm interested. And also I have, as I've grown up, I was a quizzer, and in college I have run a lot of quizzes literally all around the country, and so I have a very strong connection to quizzing and research in general. So whenever I work on something, I try and make that research accessible. I try to make complex things simpler, because also, for example, even in a thing like Inside Edge, it's even if you are a sports cricket analyst, it is not about an analytical skill you bring in. It's about the analytical skill that looks fun.
Yes,
it is
very true.
So I mean, you can bring in a lot of great data, but as an audience, if I don't have fun with their data, then there is no point of the data.
Basically, it's the I guess it's basically the basic human condition of the character that the audience relates to, and within that structure you can put in the technicalities.
And the technicality should be there for an end. It should not be there just to show off. So I mean, for example, if you have seen Inside Edge, whenever Rohini comes about with a data point, it has a dramatic connection to the things that are happening.
Sure, true.
Like in season 1 of Inside Edge, when Rohini figures out that Prashant might actually be his no balls are suspect, when Rohini figures that out because of a certain data point that she has.
Yeah.
It is not a blank data point. It's through that data point she figures out that there's something wrong with Prashant.
Very true.
Okay. So that is how you have to use data in films for engagement potential.
Very true. Very well said. So let's come back to talking about Scam 1992. Let's talk about the process in the writer's room. How many days have you worked on this? And could you tell me how many drafts have you written for every episode? Could you tell me on that?
Yeah, sure. So basically, so we wrote Inside Edge. Inside Edge came out in July 2017. And I think in November 2017, the first thing of Scam came into place, I think. So, I think Hansal Mehta got in touch with Sumit to write it. And then Sumit and me, we've been writing together for a long time. I was discussing this with him yesterday only. And we've been trying to write stuff together from 2008, actually.
Okay.
And for 7 years, nothing happened. I mean, we've met half of Bollywood. We've pitched half of our stories. We wrote so many screenplays for other people which never took off, etc. And Inside Edge is the first thing which took off. And which was success as well. And now we have written Scam together, and Scam has become obviously a much bigger success in comparison. So basically as writers we understand each other from a very, very long time. So we really exactly know that he knows my strengths, I know his strengths. So I know where he will be crucial, he knows where I'll be crucial, etc. So essentially, when we met, Hansal Mehta, he obviously told us that he wants to adapt the Harshit Mehta scam, and I was very chilled about it, because I thought, okay, stock market achhi baat hai, I've lost so much money, I'll at least get some money out of it, and at least make use of that knowledge that I've derived from stock markets. Okay, so I was thrilled because of that. But then the next challenge was the book, and the book is a mighty behemoth. If you look at that book, it's a 500-page book, and it is such a detailed narration of not one scam. Sujata and Debashu Basu's book, actually, it is a narration of all the scams which happened together. See, what happened is when the Harshit Mehta scam came out, the entire system was in trouble because everyone was scamming, literally speaking. So after this scam broke out, literally, you had cat among the pigeons. It was people figured out that everyone else was scamming. There was zero system in the banking system, zero discipline in the money markets, and everyone was rigging stocks. Everyone were rigging money. Everyone were doing wrong money market deals, and everyone was basically scamming. And all of it broke open. So the Harshit Mehta scam is just, let's say, 10% of the entire scam. The problem is, since it broke out from Harshit Mehta's, from his default to SBI,
yes,
it has become known as the Harshit Mehta scam. Yeah. But it was actually, so the book has lots of chapters, each of them dedicated to different scams that all broke out together. So at the beginning we thought, okay, we'll have 500 pages of Harshit Mehta. Eventually it wasn't. It's probably 30-40 pages of Harshit Mehta. And the book is detailed to an extreme. It is, so if you are someone who likes reading it, you will have a ball. It is such an enjoyable book in terms of reading the technicalities of the scam. But again, a lot of it is just technicalities because the book intricately describes how everything happened and who did what. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But obviously then we are doing only one story. We are only doing the Harshit Mehta scam. So we took out the Harshit Mehta bit of it.
Okay.
And we created a structure around it. Now the structure also, we had a lot of debates about the structure also, in the sense that there's something called a beat sheet that you create, that you have 10 episodes, you create the beats of the 10 episodes and you essentially discuss. So we started with the beat sheet, which was roughly to understand, okay, we are going to start with his life, and we are going to show how he grew, and we are going to show how he scammed. Then we are going to have this parallel investigative track of Sujata Lal finding out exactly what he's doing and how she finds it out. So that has to be also interesting. And then we'll come to it, and then we'll figure out what happened after the scam broke out. After the newspaper came out. So this was this whole structure. But all of it are facts and very raw facts. So the first challenge was to create the structure.
Yeah.
I remember me and Sumit, we wrote an episode at the beginning, which was actually right now episode 5 or something. Okay. Because we had a different way of telling the story at the beginning. We thought, what if we start with the scam only and then we go back and see Harshit's life, etc. There was an idea.
Okay.
So we wrote episode 5. We had this sequence where the whole story starts from Sitaraman being in Palani and these SBI officials going to Palani to find the guy. So you are starting this show entirely with 2 SBI officials trying to hunt down Sitaraman. That was the entire fun in the episode 1.
Okay.
So that's what it was starting. Yeah. So
then it became a linear story. You made it linear.
Yeah, all of us thought it was a great beginning. So basically we sent it to, whenever you're working with new people, essentially you send episode 1 and you're actually a little scared. You're thinking that you don't know what they're going to say. So
yeah.
So Hansal sir read it and he was happy about it, and he said, this is very good writing and I really like the way you guys have written it, but somehow I can't connect. I don't know what is happening. I know that I can understand what is happening, but I can't feel Harshit because I don't know what he is. I just see he's a savvy guy who's come out with Lexus, etc. I just don't know anything beyond that. So maybe we should try out different structure for this.
Okay.
So we said, okay, fine. Let's do one thing. Let's go back to the beginning, and then again, how do you introduce him? We had incidents. So right now the cold open that you have of episode 1 when Sharad Billari comes to Times of India, that is one of the few ideas we had to start the show, because we were trying to figure out what are the other things that are possible. And that structure also came much later. We were starting very in a linear way. We started off with one of Harshit's live events, which we thought was great fun. Okay. And that event right now is not in the film anymore. In the show anymore. We have cut that out because it wasn't fitting in later on.
Okay.
So then we thought it's a better idea to go linear only. And now again, there's a problem when you do a linear thing about a person you cover some 20-25 years, because how do you fill the gaps? And luckily, at least in the Harshit Mehta story, we at least have 8 episodes which are happening in a time period of 1 or 2 years. But how do you show 25 years? So we had to go back to a voiceover because we thought that's the simplest way of narrating the story. And also we had another thing in mind, and that for the younger audiences today, for example, people those who are, let's say, in their 20s, early 20s, etc. It's very important for them to understand the value of money. Like, like for example, if you say that a cinema ticket was available in 80s for 5 rupees, and now they pay 200 for it, when you do that, they'll understand, okay, this was 40 times more.
Okay. Yes, very true.
So how do you explain that, how money has changed in 20 years, in 30 years? So that was one thing we were very conscious of. So we constantly try and put these things, that he pays 1.5 lakhs to buy a flat in Kandivli. I mean, now people will think, oh my god, you're buying a flat for 1.5 lakhs, which means it costs probably 60-70 more times, or maybe a crore or whatever.
Yeah.
So we try to maintain this correlation with money throughout the story. That's one thing. The other thing was, we tried to figure out, we also had to explain a bit how 80s were, because though it went into the realm of slight spoon feeding, but it was good for the audiences to get into that. At times there is a problem that happens in film, and I often notice it, that filmmakers get too self-indulgent to say, no, I'll not do this. I'll not use voiceover. I'll not use this. That's a cheat code.
हाँ,
तो ये सब करके कभी-कभी क्या होता है, they make the narration very difficult, and then they make it a lot less accessible, which is perfectly fine. As a filmmaker, you can do whatever you want to, but if you think we have a great compelling story, for example, then you also have a responsibility to make it more accessible, I think, at a certain level, so that everyone can enjoy the story. I mean, that's how I think epics came into being. Like Ramayana, Mahabharata, Iliad, Odyssey, they are all accessible in a certain way, because the writers who wrote it, they didn't dumb it down, they didn't spoon feed people, they still made it something that everyone can connect to. And I think there is a responsibility, even like in Narcos, there is a voiceover for that matter. True. And without the voiceover, that show would not be that. So I think that was the first thing to take, that whether we should use a voiceover, and if we do, then how do we use it, etc. Those are the technical things we are also constantly concerned about. So once we got into it, me and Sumit did the screenplay and the first draft dialogues of the whole thing. As a process, so after we wrote 5 episodes, then Weber Vishal came into picture, and he wrote one draft of the dialogues, and then Karan Vyas came into picture and wrote another draft of dialogues, and both of them contributed hugely to our dialogues and made it what it is today, right now. And I'll give them a lot of credit for the way they spun their words, and they're excellent wordsmiths, both of them actually.
Very true.
How they brought in their ideas, and how they made certain slightly drier parts a lot more fun. So those things have really contributed to the entire thing, because we also think this financial thriller, this is business. How do you keep the audience engaged? And some of these so-called CTMA dialogues have really helped to loosen things up. I mean,
concerning
and I'm glad we have them actually, because we had so much fun when they got written down and got narrated. So we thought audience will have as much fun when they watch it.
So did you fix the tone with the director before writing? As in, talking about Hansal Mehta's work, like this is not what we have seen before. Shahid is quite different. Omerta is quite different. Aligarh is quite different. Scam 1992, it's since you talked about CT Mar dialogue. So did you have this conversation with him right before the writing process started, that this is going to be different?
No,
the tone is going to be different.
No, I think this was I think work in progress. See, I'll tell you also what happened at times. There is an advantage of when you write something for over a period of time. So we started writing this sometime in November. So we got in touch in November 2017. Let's say in 2018 ka beginning mein we started let's say writing. Okay, before that we had this extensive research thing.
Yes.
So despite now what happens is we spoke a lot with the authors. I mean, I think we spent hours talking to them. And see, there are two aspects to it. One is to explain, okay, there are 3 different universes here which we all got concerned about. One is the banking universe.
Okay.
Now none of us are bankers. How do you write banking terminology in a cohesive manner? When 2 top bankers talk, how do they talk, for example? That's one important thing.
That should be engaging to the audience also at the same time.
Yes. Okay. And we were absolutely clueless about it. Let's face it. Okay. That's one. Second is the stock market jargon. I knew because I knew. I mean, since I've watched television for so long, business channels all the time, I've seen all these top stock market guys talking. I know stock market jargon like the back of my hand.
Okay.
And obviously, so that is easy. So that is the easiest thing to crack. Obviously, to make it more accessible was another part. But if I wouldn't have had the idea of how stock markets work, it would have been more difficult. Simple. And also, if you don't know how stock markets work, it's going to be very difficult for you to read the book also, because the book is for a slightly erudite reader who understands how markets work.
Okay.
Though the book explains things extremely nicely, but there are stock markets, like shorting, for example. Now, shorting is something which is such a unique thing in the markets. In real life, you have no shorting.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time I would try to explain what shorting is to, let's say, to a co-writer or to an actor, they would have no clue. And you have to really explain how shorting works, because shorting is not selling. I mean, to bet against a stock that it's going to go down is something. It is so unique to the stock market arena. It's very difficult for people to understand also. So, but the book really helped us to fix the banking terminology, because the book has a lot of banking terms. And we understood if you have short, crisp dialogues which with those terms only, it will sound like proper banking conversation. And if you look at it, all of Citibank or SBI's discussions are short and crisp and technical, which helps you also, because the scenes, I mean, the scenes start and finish quickly. So even if you are getting stuck slightly with banking terminology, though there is inherent drama in that, it's not holding you for 5 minutes. They are going away in 1.5 minutes.
Yeah.
The third thing, and this was very crucial to crack, is how do you create an independent journalist track, which is almost like an investigative journalist, making it completely logical and true. I mean, I've seen a lot of journalists and a lot of top media people have praised how they've really liked the fact that the journalist track looks very authentic. So one of them is obviously Suchita Dalal. Ms. Suchita Dalal helped us a lot on this. Okay, I mean, she really told us a lot about how she went about her process. So we noted that down, and we got an arc. We got a peek into her mind, actually.
How nice.
So even if things that we've dramatized, before and after, over and above what she went through, we once we understood the character, we knew, okay, now this is the way this character is going to behave. That becomes easy. We got the crux of the character. So putting a beginning and an end to it was easy. So these are the ways we went about trying to create an authentic space for all the three fields: banking, stock markets, and journalism. Yeah. But getting back to stock markets, it's a very interesting thing which happened in episode 2, for example, when Harshad and Ashwin are talking. I'll give you an example. It's going to be easier for you to understand how we went about this. And they're discussing that Mrs. Gandhi has been shot. So now everyone's mourning in the country. What are we going to do? Are we going to buy? Are we going to sell? Okay. So the first draft of dialogues that we had written, me and Sumit, since we write first draft dialogues all the time, and sent it to Hansal sir also, was we wrote this in very simple terms: kharidna hai, bechna hai, etc. etc. Okay, and he read it and he said, "Listen, I have an issue with this, and that is Harshad and Ashwin are two of the brightest minds of the 80s and 90s. Okay, and it seems like they are talking like 14-year-olds. Okay." I really want them to talk the way they would actually talk in real life.
So you did this without knowing. You thought these are going to be the dialogues, like, or did you just write it for the sake of writing for that time? No.
Let me explain the process to you.
Please.
So when you write an episode, you write all the dialogues, which are like the first draft dialogues.
Okay.
And those dialogues are, I mean, if you look at the credits, we also have additional dialogue credits in the show, because you write a lot of dialogues, you write a lot of punchlines, you try and write it as if this is the last draft going out.
Okay.
And then the dialogue writers, when they come on board, then they rewrite a lot of dialogues. They bring in a lot more ideas. They rewrite a lot more fun lines. They may add a lot of fun in a certain scene. So the whole dialogue writing works a different process.
Okay.
But when you're writing screenplay along with the first draft dialogue, you are writing it as if this is the last draft of everything.
Okay, I got it. Yeah.
So you set the tone there only. So for example, if when a dialogue writer comes in a screenplay which is written professionally, by the tone they can figure out, okay, this is the tone, now how do I improve on the same given dialogue? How do I bring in more innovation here? How do I bring in more ideas here? How do I make it more conversational? At times what happens when screenplay writers just write a first draft dialogue, they essentially give out information. Okay, a lot of times smart dialogue writers try and convert that information to drama. So there are very thin lines in the whole thing. Yeah. So here when we wrote the conversation sounded like very simplistic by nature. So Hansal sir said, no, I want this to be technical by nature, how the way two stock market guys are going to talk.
Okay.
So then I became very happy. So we don't have to dumb down. Great. So we went back and wrote exactly technical the way it should be. markets are going to rebound, and we are going to short the markets, and it's going to rebound, and then we will see what are the resistances and what are the supports, etc. We got into all the technical information, and then he said, yes, this is the way they're going to talk. Now let's simplify this.
Okay.
So that's how we got into a tone of how to approach the entire technical complex writing of the show.
Okay.
So actually, there was a process in which what happened. So Sumit didn't know much about the markets, and I was the one who knew about the market. So between the two of us, it was very easy. I would write it in the most technical term possible. Then Sumit will say, "मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. Let me simplify this. Hang on." Okay, so that was a very good filter for us to understand what the audience are going to understand, because they don't understand stock markets either.
That's how you found the balance.
Yeah. So then he would simplify it, and he would check with me, ठीक है ना. I said, हाँ ये ठीक है. इतना तक ठीक नहीं है, ये गलत हो रहा है, ये हो रहा है. Then he would actually write it down, and then obviously Hansal sir will give a feedback to it as to what he thinks is correct or not. So this was the process. In terms of the tone evolved over a period of time. So this whole fun bit you're talking about, see, we were trying to make it as much fun as possible any which way.
Yeah.
See, certain scenes are a lot of fun. If you just look at it, it is just not the dialogues. You'll see a lot of scenes are a lot of fun. Actually.
Yeah.
I mean, if you bring up certain scenes also, like the way the typist gets appointed, for example, as an example.
Yeah. Yes, true.
So a lot of so we had that thing in mind throughout, that eventually we are going to have very interesting scenes. But however, also this we for various reasons. I mean, we took about 1.5 years to write it.
Yes.
In the sense that it was a slow production for XYZ reasons also. So we started this in 2018 beginning.
Yeah.
And we went into shoot in 2019, I think, second half.
Yeah.
So in these 18 months, what we did is we wrote all these 10 episodes. I don't remember how many drafts, must be n number of drafts. 5-6 to hoga hi, okay? So essentially what happens is, obviously the producers also got into us, and producers were also at times, they would give us feedback as to what they think is working and what they not think is working, and we'll debate over it. And essentially producers are also very good balances. They create the balance because they think what is missing in a story, for example.
Okay.
The producer will probably say, no, why can't we see this? Ye missing ho ja raha hai. Can we get this person? So you'll think, this person is missing, so just get this guy back.
Okay.
So this is the way we rationalize the whole thing. The fun bit also, we were always attempting it, but Vaibhav and Karan, they brought in a lot more fun also. So at times when they would read a normal scene which we've written normally, and they will add the fun bit to it and they'll narrate it, for example, then it's like, yes, maza aa gaya scene. Like
I understand.
Like for example, Karan had this idea of bringing in the Hindi film songs, for example, like that Pehla Nasha and like propose bhi jab karega ho bolega mehndi saja ke rakhna. So
maybe all so those also.
Some of the things.
Amitabh Bachchan ka time to gaya, ab naye log aa gaye, Bollywood mein bhi aur stock market mein bhi. All those.
Yeah, those things, and that like Vaibhav brought in the risk hai to ishq, I mean risk hai to ishq thing. So those things is exactly what made all these things a lot more fun.
Okay.
And the best thing about working with both of them were actually they were absolutely open to hearing from us, understanding a brief, and actually doing their best. So it was a ball working with them also. A lot of times you might get into a writer's room where writers don't connect to each other well, but this was absolutely super smooth, and that shows also in the script.
That's true.
That actually we at times probably X will tell why I love you, and one of them will bring in a dialogue which actually enhances that moment and makes it so much more fun.
True.
So I mean that was there, and it was great fun.
Now let's talk about your writing process in general, or about the process of screenwriting in general. Do you think that we also talked about this a bit ago, that about making the content engaging? But do you think with time now, audience's attention span has become very less, and it is this thought always there when you write for digital, that you have to hook the audience with the cold open, or maybe in the first 5-10 minutes? Is this thought there? Because there used to be cinema made by filmmakers like Ozu, many others who used to make cinema in a transcendental way. Like everything used to happen very peacefully, things used to take their time, and that cannot happen today. Do you believe in that?
No, I don't believe in that. Let me put it very clearly, and I'll tell you why also. I'm very clear about this. I think there are a lot of misconceptions about how people watch and consume cinema, and I think this whole entire conversation around these things are full of misconceptions. People don't look at reality. Like, for example, I cannot binge watch a show. I have never watched an entire show in my entire life, for example. Okay. I have probably, if you name any show, I'll tell you, okay, one episode dekha hai, 2 episode dekha hai. I've written 3 full seasons I've written 3 full shows. If you consider Insalaj 1 and 2 as two separate shows, I have not watched a single show in my entire life. Okay. And I cannot. Mere se nahi hoga. If I have to watch 8 episodes, I'll take 3 years to watch it. Okay? So, but a younger person who's in his 18 or 20s will binge watch the whole damn thing in 10 hours.
Yeah.
So I would never say the audience attention has gone down. I would never say that. When I watch a film, I have no patience to watch anything for that matter. Like, I get bored in a T20 match also. Okay. If I have to watch a 90-minute film, action film, thrilling film or whatever, I'll watch 15 minutes, I'll take a break, I'll again come back to it. So it is not about today's attention spans. It is about how people themselves are structured. For example, Satyajit Ray, for example, was a very quick storyteller. I mean, in his initial days, he was a poetic, languid, slow storyteller. In his midpoint, when he was making his thrillers, he was such a quick storyteller. Not one extra word, not one extra frame. So I think it depends on how. Like today, Chaitanya Tamani is making films which are very slow, which are very poetic and slow, and has its own rhythm. So I'm saying we have a huge misconception about, like, Abbas Kiarostami makes his films are so poetic and slow, but Makmal Baf is so fast and he's so quick, for example. So I'm saying this entire conversation about audience spans are mired with fallacies because people have not looked into the facts.
Okay.
When someone is binge watching for 10 hours, you can't say he has no attention span, he or she. How are you doing it?
True.
If I don't have attention span, you show me the best thing in the world, I'll not watch it. My body is going to get bored of it.
Okay.
I mean, forget about my mind. My body will get bored of it. See, there are 2 ways of watching a film. One is the intimate viewing, which I called from a laptop or a phone.
Yeah.
And the second is watching a film in a dark hall in a
community viewing
screen. Community viewing. In community viewing, your pace engagement doesn't matter because the audiences will not run away. You can pace up the film as slowly as you want. Okay. And at the end of it, but however, see, there is a difference between pace and engagement also. You might have a film which has a lot of thrills, but if the thrills are not believable, I'll lose engagement from the word go. And you might make a film where it's actually a slow burn, even a show, which is slow burn, but if I believe in the slow burn,
Breaking Bad,
the characters, even our show for that matter, Breaking Bad is obviously a good example. Our show for that matter also, it is slow burn.
It is.
There is no hurry. It's slow burn. Patal Lok, I saw Patal Lok first 3 episodes are absolute slow burn. Nothing really happens there. Okay, so slow burn is perfectly fine. There is no hurry. If I'm engaging, my engagement will depend on how I relate to characters. It is not about plot. This is a fallacy which people have been peddling for a long time.
Okay.
And now shows are coming out which proves that these are fallacies. And I'm very sure about this. See, I'll tell you something. Shows are all about, more about, having written 3 shows, I have an opinion about that. You may not agree to it as a different issue altogether. And people don't have to agree with it also. But shows are more about characters than about plotting.
Okay.
One feedback which I took from our experiences that people said that though there was no cliffhanger, we wanted to know what will Harshit do next.
Yes, that's true.
Now, so because you have connected to the character there, and you want to know in his life how is he going to make a comeback. You don't care about ki plot point ki next mein kya hone wala hai. Darwaza khulne ke baad kya hona. You don't care about that. So I'm saying audiences have various ways of watching or consuming content also, which should actually come into the conversation right now. So there is no question of engagement, and I can tell you about myself. I'm such an impatient observer. My scenes are very short also. Like, I get bored of what I write, so I actually make it as crisp as possible. So that's a natural thing of mine. So in fact, I am all the time cutting down my own dialogues and making the scene shorter because I don't have the attention to read my own stuff. But I think, but that also pays off in a way, because that's why probably scenes by themselves actually works out. I mean, I don't know. I'm just hoping that.
Could you suggest some tips for aspiring writers, like some channels they can go and watch on YouTube, or some exercises they can practice by themselves, which could be helpful to becoming a better writer?
Okay, so there's only one thing I'm going to say, and this is the crucial thing. I think today writers and filmmakers, they watch too much content, which is the problem for themselves. I've seen people writing often subconsciously. When they're writing, they're actually rewriting scenes from their favorite films, and this often happens because they don't even realize when they have done it. Everything becomes a reference for them from another film. I think that is, watching too much is actually a problem, I think. And there is no, I mean, there was an initial conversation that if you don't watch, how would you know what has been done? I said, bhai, you'll never know, na. I mean, the number of content that's being created every day. I mean, the entire world is making 400 shows a year. How many are you going to watch? So things are going to be done. You can't help it. That is beyond your things. So the basic thing is, you have to write from life, and not from whatever life you've had, and not from films. And that's very important. Like, when I sit in a writing meeting and I'm trying to sell the concept to a showrunner or to a fellow writer and trying to tell them why is this good, I have two references all the time. Either it's an experience from my own life, and I'm sure all of us have enough varied experiences that actually can give you great reference for fiction, not exact fiction. So for example, if I've lost my phone charger in my house, for example, and I'm looking for it, for example, and if it's making me anxious, for example, and if I have to write a scene where a hitman has lost his gun and he has to find his gun, very different scenarios, but I can use my phone experience, looking for my phone experience. I can extrapolate that and I can put that to the writer, to the hitman, and probably create a very similar scenario. But that is still a scenario where I'm writing from life, as opposed to I've seen a hitman hide a gun in some film and I'm going to extrapolate that. That is actually that kind of fiction becomes less authentic, and eventually you understand what looks fresh on screen and what doesn't look fresh on screen. So my first thing is, people should write everything from life, even if they have not experienced much life. One. And my second thing actually is that there's a thing I can't explain to you. There is something called an instinctive understanding of structure when you write, and that happens if you have read the mythology. I mean, myths essentially. So essentially, if you have read the 4 epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Iliad, Odyssey, those are your easiest references. Every time I have to argue a point somewhere, I said, but see, Ram did this. See, Ravan did this. See, Arjun could not figure this out. See, Karn was winning, but the earth opened up and his wheel got into the earth. So these mythology, I mean, these books are such treasure troves of writing. And these are the easiest references actually to go back to, and actually then think back how you're going to work with your characters.
It makes a lot of sense.
Because I still think nothing has been written which are better than these things. So I mean, these are your grand references, and you should always make use of the same thought, same situation, and then tweak it around and actually put them in your writing. I would probably say that all budding writers should really read these 4. Ramayana, Mahabharata, Iliad, and Odyssey. Really read these 4 to understand what complex writing should all be. Once you read all these 4, even if you take a couple of years, your mind is set. You know all the events, and then every situation you write is going to be. You can use those stories and solve your problems in your story. Story is mostly about solving problems, and a lot of writing is solving problems, and those are such beautifully solved problems all the time. Like I keep giving an example that in like in Indian mythology, what happens, and it's a great fun thing also, that when there is a crisis and they don't know how to solve it, the writers, I mean whoever wrote that, they will bring in a rishi who will come and give a curse to someone, and they'll get stuck, and then they'll tell the rishi, "Arey, you have given me a curse. What do I do?" And mostly this is Durbhasha also. I can tell you this. And then the rishi will tell them, "Listen, okay, I was angry. I've given you a curse, but if you do this, then your curse actually will get, the effects will go down." This is also how the whole Ravan and his brother and Kumbhakarna, they also came into being like this only in mythology. They were the gatekeepers of Vishnu, and they didn't let the sons of Brahma in, and that's how. And they gave him a curse that you have to be born as human beings, and Vishnu will kill you. Even from it starts from there, and it's beautiful how in the mythologies they create these problems and they solve it also. And something else, a subplot happens because this has to be solved. So once you read your mythology well, or what I mean, I'm talking about the classical writings. I mean, you want to read Egyptian also, or you might read Chinese also. I mean, you might read the Jataka tales also. Whatever you think, whatever ancient things which is been there for 400, 500, I mean, a few thousand years. If you read those, I think those are great text material for you to solve problems when you're writing. That's what my strategy is. I mean, people can do whatever they want to otherwise. Yeah, I completely believe watching current contemporary fiction and trying to extrapolate that is a problem, because you get into that zone where you're just recreating what you've seen.
That's true. That subconsciously definitely happens. And but also I have just thought, as in, what if you end up, since you said look at life, create from life, what if you end up creating something which has already been created, and you think you are doing it for the first time, but so many people have already done it? Then how would you deal with that situation? So is it not important that we also see what has been done, or at least run through with people? So what do you think about this?
See, there are two ways of, if you're a writer who's writing in isolation and putting it for publication or publishing your own blog, then you have no reference points. Then obviously then you might write something which has been written. But in my current process, where you actually deal with other writers, you deal with showrunners, directors, producers, actors, if something is so familiar, 20 guys, one will tell you to pehle ho gaya.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
And I'm telling you still it doesn't matter. If you take a film like Uran, for example, and you have a boy who's rebelling against his father, okay, you can write the same scene with another boy and another father. It doesn't make a difference. I mean, kya hone wala hai? Just because the boy will probably have a different hobby or different thing, something of that sort, and the father will have a different perspective, and they are going to fight. The dialogues will by itself become different because of the.
These are two different characters.
Scenes
with different settings.
Yeah, if you look at Romeo and Juliet, the number of times it's been redone, just because of cultural background, settings, everything changes by itself. I mean, the thought of a scene being the same doesn't. Take a bank heist story, now 4 guys walk into a bank, they're doing a bank heist. Seen that 5 million times, but every time it's going to be different just because the characters have changed.
Yes.
Unless you're copy pasting lines, unless you're copy pasting jokes, unless you're actually literally doing a kitne aadmi the kind of a retelling, unless you're actually doing that, the moment characters change, the people change now. It's not much to worry about. But obviously you have to think how your dialogues will be fresh, you have to think how these people will be fresh, you have to think how these characters will be fresh. Ek kya hobby ho sakta hai, it's going to be fresh. I can also tell you, if your character loves a dog, for example, and your character and 50 people have loved dogs in 50 films, the way you will relate to your dog is going to be your own individual thing also.
Yes.
For example, if I have a character talking to a dog, I'm going to bring in parts of my character in which I really talk to dogs, and it's going to be very different from other people.
Yes.
That's why I'm saying you need to if the moment your life will not replicate other people's lives exactly. So your life is your only original source of writing.
How wonderful. Yes.
If you keep that in mind, there will be some uniqueness in what you write any which way. It will not be completely copy paste of someone else's work, because your reference here is an original person.
True. On that note, thank you so much for being with me.
Sure. It was lovely talking to you, and I'm glad that you understand the process of writing and everything else. It was a pleasure talking to you, and it was very perceptive of you to actually understand the process and how writers think. It's great. That was great.
Thank you for sharing so many insights with me. You broke down the whole show and
welcome,
the process of writing for me. I'm sure people who have listened to this whole conversation, they have learnt a lot, and it should be inspiring to a lot of aspiring writers. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll be glad if it is actually. Thank you so much.
And congratulations again
it was my
for
pleasure.
the show.
Thank you again. Yeah.
And all the best for the future projects.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was absolutely a pleasure talking to Shashi. We might do this some other time also, maybe in future.
Sure.
I hope
sure,
we do this
sure.
once
Looking forward. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.